Hello again and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make a stone window turkey stained glass style. So this is something you would hang in your window and the light would go through it, and it's a great decorations. First of all, I researched turkeys online. So I wanted to see, the different colors and feathers that I can use for my turkey. And then on a piece of 11 by 17 paper, because that's how big I wanted my image to be, I drew out the different areas to depict my turkey. And then I used 14 gauge bare copper wire to outline the shape. Now you can use it a little bit thicker or thinner wire if you'd like to, but you want to use something thick enough as a nice border for your different sections of stones and glass. And you don't want it too thin because then it won't have any strength to it, because I'm using this to help support my turkey. So I cut and bent lots of different pieces and I held them together with push pins. And I put this over a board to hold them down. Now I'm going to solder the stones and the wires together. Now for the gobbler, I decided that piece I wanted to have as a solid piece of flat glass. So this is actually the only flat glass that I used in my project. Now I did use a ring saw to cut out this shape because it's a little bit intricate, but you can use a hand cutter if you want to. And then I foiled it with my 7/32 inch black backed foil, which is what the kind of foil I use for everything. And so it's copper foil like you'd use in regular stained glass work. I am using 4060 tin lid solder, and I have a lot of these materials listed in my descriptions if you want to see exactly what I used. I'm also using gel flux because I like to use gel flux because it's not really watery, so it doesn't like run all over the place. It kind of stays where you put it. And the paste flux is just a little too stiff for my liking, so that's why I like to use the gel. So what I'm doing is I have a lot of these little glass shapes, and I buy a bunch of them and foil a whole bunch of them, so I have a bunch to choose from while I'm making my creations. I take the 7/32 inch copper foil, and I like to use the black backed foil so that if any light goes through, I don't have that coppery background visible, but that's really up to you. And then I take my foil and I cut it into, for this project, I cut it into 3 different lengths so that it's not as thick as when you just buy it straight. You can buy in different thicknesses, but I haven't been able to find it thin enough for what I'd like. So I just buy the 7/32 inch and cut it to the width I'm after. And this time, as I said, I cut it into 4 different long pieces and wrapped around my stones and glass. And use it that way. I'm going to use different colors of stones for the different areas so that you can still see the different areas that I created with my wire forms. Now, unfortunately, I kind of spilled the flux when I was filling my cup that I use, and so that's why I'm kind of rolling the pieces in flux. Because I didn't want to waste the flux. And that was pretty much all the flux I used for this area. I think I added a little bit more, but it made it so that I didn't waste it, as I said. So basically for each area that I'm after, I went and chose a color that I'm going to use. These are actually dark purplish colors. You can't really see the purple part. They look almost black, but they aren't. They're amethyst stones that I'm using in this area. Now, when you buy your stones or glass, I would suggest buying ones that are translucent. so that the light can go through them once you hang your window design up, because that's one reason I like stained glass, is that the light can go through it and give it, so it looks really fun in the day, and then at night you would just see the colors reflecting from the interior light of your house, but during the day you'd see light going through them. You can see that I'm adding more wire shapes to for other areas. So for this project, I decided I'm going to pretty much fill all the spaces between the stones. Now you can, if you want to, leave gaps between your stones or glass and not fill in the little cracks. That's completely up to you. But then you're going to see like a highlight between all of the shapes, and that will probably take precedence. Your eye's going to notice those highlights probably more than the bright light going through your stones. So that's why I decided I would fill all the areas. Now, for tweezers, I bought these ceramic tipped tweezers, which I really like them because the ceramic makes it so that they don't get really hot, which is nice. If you've ever worked with stained glass, your hands get kind of hot with the metal on the tweezers when you're holding something. And the ceramic also, the solder doesn't stick to the tweezers, which is always a problem when you're using metal tweezers. Sometimes your solder will like solder actually to your tweezers, and then you got to clean your tweezers off. So that's why I'm using these. This is the first time I'm using them. I'm also using a smaller solder nib for this particular project, and I actually like it. It's very handy for this kind of project because then you're not overheating the foil, and that's one thing that you really have to watch out for, and I'll show you later in this video, where you don't want to heat up the foil too much, because I didn't really wrap the foil around the stones or the glass. It's pretty much on the edge of these stones and glass. So if you heat up the foil too much, the stone or glass will just kind of pop out, and then you'll either have a hole or you'll have to put a new piece in that space, or clean off the stone or glass that you had and then refoil it and put it in. So, you have to fix it somehow, or, just deal with it. But usually you don't want to deal with it. And if you notice that, so each area is a little bit different color, and that's so that they'll still stand out as different clumps of feathers for my turkey. And up on the right-hand side, you can see that I had those reddish, like orangish, reddish, rusty colored stones. And I kind of made them on each one of the farthest outside feather areas to kind of look like a stripe when I'm done. So I would have this look at the top. So you kind of figure out what you want to do. I decided that, all the ones on the farthest outside of my turkey are going to be kind of different shades of off-white. But each area, because they're overlapping each other, is going to have to be slightly different, or else it's going to all blend together, and you're not going to be able to see the different areas that I spent so much time creating. So here's some more of the rust ones, and I wanted to make like a line going across the feathers at that particular point. So I used some of those orangey, rusty colored stones for that area. And then I put some whitish ones on one side, and then some more whitish ones below, so that it looks sort of like a stripe on the top of the feathers, because my research showed that a lot of the turkey feathers were like that. And I wanted to kind of keep it similar to what real turkeys look like. Now I'm adding some more stones down here, but I needed them to contrast the stones on either side of that area. So that's, one thing. You might want to put some in and then you might change your mind and decide on a different color. It's really, whatever you want to do. And I decided that I would put really light ones along one edge, and that would kind of help separate those amethyst ones that I did with the other ones above. So you just keep on going and going, and it's a lot of fun. But I would suggest having a lot of stones foiled. Now I foil the stones when I'm sitting watching TV with my family. Then I can just sit back and foil absolutely tons of things, and then I have them to choose from. This area has kind of clearish stones to fill that area. And when I'm foiling them, I try to make it so that the foil goes around the stones or glass kind of low on one side. So if the stone or glass has a flat-ish area, I kind of picture that going down or going up, but going around that particular area. And then you can kind of lay them down so that the stripe of foil is kind of goes straight around, so that you can turn the stone over if you need to make the foil all kind of hit at the same height from your work surface. That way they will all solder together nicely. Now, when I'm soldering these things, I like to kind of tack the stones together as I'm going. First I kind of tack them so they don't move. So I'm melting the solder in the air and kind of dropping the solder to where I want it to be. That way the solder doesn't heat up the foil very much, and it also doesn't move the stones. I can reheat the solder a little bit as I go. I was adding a little bit more flux right there. So if I need to reheat the solder, I can, but if I've already kind of tacked them in place, then they won't move on me. And I don't want them to move all over the place once I finally get them to kind of fill the area. Now I'm working over a board that I created with some, actually for this particular board, I used the ceiling tile, and on top of the ceiling tile, I put a piece of foam, and then on top of that, I put some heat resistant silicone mat. So you want to use some kind of board that you can use straight pins, thumbtacks, or straight pins into to hold your project in place when you need to. You want to have that option because sometimes you really need to hold things in place, and having something that's heat resistant and kind of available to put pins in is very advantageous. And also, if you have a board that's the right size for your project and not like overly large, then you can move the board around while you're working, and it's a nice work surface, and you don't have to keep fighting with something that's overly large. So I have a various size boards that I work on. And I do have a video on different ideas of how you can make your own work board to work on. Usually I use a clear or white silicone mat to go over my boards. It's just that I happen to have this black. I think it was actually made to put in your oven to keep the heat off of, when you're cooking, as a work surface. And so I'm using that as my board. Now these stones were a little bit on the greener side, so I decided for this project I'm going to use kind of earthy tones because it's a turkey and it's Thanksgiving and it's fall, and I wanted to use like fall colors to help accentuate fall and my turkey. So this is a greener area, and again I am tacking the different areas down, and you could tell that I have, yes, sped up this video. So I think at times it's at 4 times, and a lot of other times it's at 8 times real life. So yeah, it's not really this fast in real life. This project took probably 30 hours of soldering and probably another 6 hours or so of foiling. So I mean, it was a long project. It takes a while to do this stuff. You know, it's right now it looks like it shouldn't have taken that long because I have this running, fast, but yeah, it took a while. I like this meticulous, detailed work, and it came out really pretty and what I wanted it to be, but this is not for the people that want to do something really quick. So as you can see, you can kind of just, I'm using a thin 2 millimeter wide solder for this project, and which is really nice because it goes with my smaller nib, which makes it so that I'm pretty much only heating up the foil in between. Now in this area, I'm going to be using 2 different colors of stones and making kind of stripes in them to make the feathers. I didn't actually put a wire in between the different sections, so I'm using the colors of the stones themselves to make the shape. So, and you can do that at different times. I could have done the whole turkey that way. I just wanted the extra wires in between to help hold the whole project together, for strength wise. So not only having it as a barrier to put the different stones in, I also wanted the wires to add strength. I'm just watching the stones. Yeah, they're really pretty watching the stones. These are actually glass, these particular ones. These are not stones. Most of this is agate stones of various color, but these particular ones are kind of orangey amber glass. So I think it's fine to mix the two together. They're all natural. I mean, they're not plastic, so I always kind of figure glass is natural, but I guess it's made of natural stuff. This area right here, the ones on the left are more, they're a little bit blue and pearlescent, whereas this stripe of stones is a clearer crystal type stone. And you can do quite a large area of placing your stones before you start soldering. And as I said, it's really to your advantage to have a whole bunch done ahead of time. Now, of course, when you paint on your gel flux, you got to do this with a very light touch because your stones will start running around, and you know you don't really want that. You want to keep them in place once you've decided that you like where they're placed. It's almost like doing a puzzle, because what you're doing is you're trying to find the perfect piece to fit in the shape that you have, because you don't want to have any, well, I don't want to have any more solder voids to have to fill, you know, voids you have to fill with solder than needed. If that really takes a lot of solder and, you know, a lot more time, and it might not look exactly what you'd like it to look like if you have lots of wide solder areas. This project took about, I don't know, maybe a pound and a quarter of solder. It took a lot of solder. And solder costs about at the least $20 a pound. So, you know, that's besides all the time, it did take a lot of solder. And this was not an inexpensive project to do because the stones themselves cost, I don't know, at least $5 a pound. Um, so it really depends on what kind of stone you're using, where you're getting your stones. I get a lot of my stones from Amazon. They're really, you know what you're going to get with the Amazon stuff. I also get stuff on Temu and AliExpress. And some of the ones that I get on those other sites are not exactly what I expected, but they're still a good resource, you know, to look around and find, you know, what you want. I also sometimes go to Hobby Lobby and get stones and glass. Then you can actually physically see them before you buy them. So, you know, don't short yourself to one place to buy your supplies, because you know, you looking around is a fine thing. One thing I do like about Amazon is they search out from so many different sources that and they ship really, really fast. So you can get, you know, pretty much exactly what you want in a timely manner. It just might be a little more expensive at times, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a really good price. So yeah, I just like to shop around. Where I get my solder right now is on Amazon because it comes fast and it's exactly what I want, and the price is better than any other place that I can find. So, you know, it really depends on what you have available to you. Maybe you have a place that's local that you can get your supplies. So if you can, great. But that's why I'm going to list. I'm an Amazon affiliate, and I do get a little bit of commission if you do buy stuff on Amazon after looking at my website. Um, so yeah, feel free to look at my description, and I do add a list of different supplies that I use for my project. Um, and then I can get a couple cents off of you for doing that. It doesn't cost anything more for you, but if you go through an affiliate, the affiliate will get a little small commission for recommending the stuff. So as you see, I just did an area of a kind of ambery gold glass, and then I did another area of some more amethyst, and now these are actually stones. These are kind of reddish um, stones that I'm using in this area. So as you can see, I didn't have it perfectly planned out when I did my project. I didn't like take a marker and color in each area of my original design, which of course you can do. But I kind of did it as I went. I knew basically what I wanted. And I knew that I have a certain allotment of stones that I can work with. And I know that, now I haven't used any reddish areas, so I'm going to um, to make a reddish area on this section. So you kind of look at your design that you're working with, and try to decide from what supplies you have what will work. And I decided that I wanted to keep all the reds and oranges on the lower part of my turkey, and not on the upper part. It's really what you want. But with looking at the research, it looked like a lot of the turkeys had dark, the feathers way at the top of their bodies were pretty dark. So I decided I would kind of make another purplish area toward the top. So that's why I decided I wanted to use some of these rusty red colors, so I would fill this area for them. And while I'm doing one area, I kind of, if my eye catches an area adjacent or somewhere else on the turkey that needs some more soldering, I will then add some solder there, because as you turn your project in different angles and you're looking at it differently, you will see areas that you have missed, and then those will need to be soldered also. It's also a good idea to kind of bounce around on your project and not heat one area up too much at one time, because heating up one area too much will make the foil kind of release from the stones in that area, and that'll make the stones fall out. So if you can let one area cool down a little bit and then come back to it, you will have much better luck in having and keeping your stones in one place. Now with this project, now most of the time I say, wash your project in between the days that you work on it, so that you can make sure that the flux is clean and it's been washed off, because it makes it easier. When you add patina, it'll stick to it better if you have kept the flux as clean, your project as clean as possible. With this particular project and any other ones that are kind of flat like this, that have lots and lots of intricate stonework, I do not wash between days of working on this. I think I spent like 3 different days on this project. The reason I did not wash the flux off in between them is I knew I was going to be done in a few days. I wanted this weekend, to get this project done. But I didn't want to have to reflux areas when I found little snippets that needed to be soldered. So basically I just kept the flux on it until I was done. And then I could just, if I see an area nearby that needs a little bit more solder, I wouldn't have to add flux probably to that area, because it would still have flux on it. So that's the benefit of not washing your flux off constantly. But the three-dimensional stuff, the flux was going to kind of run off somewhat anyway, and they would get so sticky and messy with flux that it just was nice to clean it between soldering sessions. I did have to scrub this a lot to make sure that the flux was off of it when I was done, but I could just skip over, if I missed an area, I could just go to it. I didn't have to worry about adding flux. I could just, immediately solder that little spot that was in need. As you can see, these are kind of fluorite stones. They look kind of like amethyst in that they are purplish, but they also have um, green tinges and amber tinges in the stones themselves, and they're flatter than some of the stones that you can get. These are also a little bit larger than some stones. So I wanted some of these areas to have larger stones than others. I wanted some variety. So this particular area is similar to the one next to it, but these were lighter um, stones. I have some lighter purplish tinges to them, but they have some nice variety in the stones themselves. Now the ones lower than these that I'm working on were actually kind of peachish. They may have been fluoride still, but they were a little bit on the pinker peachish side. And it's really kind of hard to see it right now. They are covered with flux and with the lighting and all. But when I'm done and I have the pictures of the finished product, you'll see that they definitely were different colored stones. So again, I'm holding them in place and, you know, tacking them here and there so they don't run around on me, and then going around each and every one to add solder to them. Although the flux is needed to make the solder blend and become liquid, I am still pretty much dropping the melted solder onto the flux and in between the stones, because if I heated up the flux itself right at the foil mark, it would have heated the foil up too much. Unfortunately, this makes for a little bit of a chunkier look. The solder is not perfectly smooth between all the different joints. I do kind of go over areas that are not at all smooth and try to smooth those out some, but I don't want to have them worry about that too much, because it'll release the stones. So I can go around and just kind of check here and there and add little bits of solder where I see little gaps are. Because as you saw, I moved the whole working surface. I turned it 180 degrees, and looking at the stuff from a different angle, I can see that there's little gaps here and there and little areas of foil that were not soldered. So I'm going through and just kind of touching up here and there when needed. And I turned my whole turkey over, and now I am touching up in the back, where, because this is going to be hanging on a window, so you're actually going to see it from both sides. So I am touching the back up where the wire was never soldered, and I'm touching up wherever the foil itself was not soldered. So it's like everything is going to be resoldered from the back side. And here again, you don't want to heat it up too much, because you've already heated up the other side of your project. So you got to be careful that, you know, if you heat up this side too much, you're going to start losing stones again also. Soldering on the back side will also leave little globs of solder, which will help hold things together. Now you can see that I have a hole right there that I needed to replace with a piece of glass, and I have another hole there. But since I couldn't find the perfect piece, I am going to take out the foil that's left in the turkey itself. So I'm kind of heating it up, not heating it up too much. I don't want more stones to fall out, but I took out that ring of foil that was there, and I am going to place a piece of stone that I think is about the right size and shape. Sometimes it takes a while to find a stone or a glass that'll fit perfectly, but you know, you can also add solder around to make it more accurate. But yeah, it's going to take a bit to find one that's going to look okay. So I have those two that I'm replacing, and I'm going to add very lightly because I don't want this one to fall out too. I'm going to add solder to it so that it holds these new pieces in place. Yeah, that one fit a lot better than the top one did. Now right here, I'm working on the eyeball, which is a flat piece of black marble, or sometimes they're called dragon's tears, a friend of mine told me. But they're basically marbles that have been melted on one side. And I'm using some kind of blue stone as the color that's going to go, the stones that are going to go around the eyeball. Sorry, this is a little bit not centered in my camera, but you can see what I'm doing. So I'm adding some stones around the eyeball. And I had to like look at my research to figure out, well, how big should my turkey eyeball be? Not that I had to be really realistic, but I wanted to start off with the knowledge of realism and then change it to what I want after knowing what a real turkey looked like. So no, this isn't terribly realistic, but I wanted to in my mind at least know what a turkey's head and coloring often looks like. And because this area is a lot smaller than some of the areas I've worked on, it might take a while, and it did take a while to find the right size stones to fill this kind of crescent moon shape that I have to fill. So that's why I go back to stressing having a lot of stones to choose from. You'll be able to find the correct stone to fit your project. So I finally found ones that I thought would look good. And then of course I just need to add the flux and solder my eyeball and its surrounding grayish blue stones to the section. Now, so that wire that I put in for the design, we're not going to really see these wires in between these areas, but as kind of like you would do if you were doing oil paint, it's kind of a chiaroscuro method in that I'm not going to have a line between the two colors, but because of the different colors themselves, they will create the impression of there being a line between the areas. So just like artists do not always draw a line to show something going on in their art, they create the line dividing the areas by having different colors and different shades. That way they will create the shapes of what they want. So these stones, being different colors themselves, will create the shape. So the wire that I had put there at the beginning was basically to hold the line and the shape, but not as a finished line in my image. That's why I could have used thinner wire if I wanted to, but thinner wire would not have given as much strength. And when you're dealing with pounds and pounds of stone and solder, um, you really need to worry about strength, not just design. Now at this point, I wanted to be able to hang my turkey on my window. Now I didn't use the original outline as a way to put my hoops, because I could have made loops on the original outline and hung my turkey from that, but I didn't think that that would have as much strength as what I am doing, which is what I'm taking 14 gauge wire and I'm bending it to go from one area of wires to another. So it's attaching to the outside wire, and it's also going between stones and attaching to other wires in the design, and that will help kind of distribute the weight of the chain that I'm going to attach to the different areas of my turkey. So I didn't want all the wire, all the strength to be just on the outside design. I wanted it to be distributed into the design itself. There's another stone that fell out. These glass stones that I'm using, because they're so smooth when they're tumbled, they tend to fall out a lot easier than the stones. So the ones I was having problems with were the red ones and the amber ones, which were tumbled glass. So the glass is extremely smooth, so they don't have any grip at all, except for the stickiness of the foil. So those had more of a tendency to fall out than the stones. One way to make them stay in more is to make the solder around this glass a little bit clumpier, so it's actually overlapping the glass in areas. That kind of helps hold it together. So I have I've put solder on both sides of my loops so that the patina would stick similarly, would color similarly to the wire and the solder. So right now I washed it really well. I used some Dawn dishwashing soap and a scrubber and scrubbed the daylights out of it, which is one reason why some of the stones fell out. And I'm actually spraying on a copper patina because I figured the copper color would be great with the idea of fall nature turkey color. So that's why I decided I wanted to have the copper color as opposed to silver, just the plain solder color, or black, which is, I often use black patina. And I like to spray on the patina and then spread it around with an old toothbrush. And the reason I spray it is because with spray, you can get it from all different directions. And you can also, with the toothbrush, kind of scrub it in and make darn sure that it's hit all different angles of your solder. With a project like this, you have so many different surfaces to patina that the spray helps make sure you haven't missed any. And I'm not using very much patina. I'm just very light spray, and I'm using the dregs from it to kind of spread around so I'm not wasting any of this patina. You do want to use gloves. I like to do it outside. Patina is very, very toxic, and you really need to watch out for that. So it's not something you want to play around with, without knowing what you're doing, because it is very toxic. So do wear gloves and make sure that you're keeping it off you. You don't want to breathe it in or get it on your skin. But it does make a very pretty finish. So I'm scrubbing it around. I'm making sure I have all different angles and directions. I did it on both sides of my project so that I have a very nice looking turkey when I'm done. And then I take it into the bathroom and or the kitchen, and I clean it. I rinse it with cold water, and then I'm going to polish it. For polishing for this one, I use linseed oil and just put oil on the whole thing to make it nice and polished. And this is my finished turkey hanging up in my window. I I really like the final project. It's great and ready for Thanksgiving holidays, and have a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.